Hey everyone, it's Melanie of Art Studio 320. In this week's project, I have 3 chairs, one I'm sitting in, and the other 2 that I have been commissioned to refinish while preserving the flowers on the back. How am I going to do that? Stick around. After cleaning off your piece of furniture, the first thing you want to do is make any repairs that need to be done before you do any kind of refinishing. And what I wanted to do was push down that glue in between the cracks. And this particular chair was easy. This next chair, the piece on the end was coming off. I just couldn't get everything to line up. And that bottom piece was leaving a huge gap between the seat and that piece of wood that should have been connected to the seat. But the way it was constructed, I just wasn't going to be able to fix that. So I started with pushing the glue into the cracks, thinking maybe I could just do it like I did the first chair. Here I'm taking off the glue, hoping that that will help when I put the 2 pieces back together. But it was a little more complicated than that, so I decided to take the seat off completely, which in the end will make everything easier. I think it's important when you're refinishing a piece of furniture to get off all of the old glue wherever you can find it, because you don't want that getting in your way, and you want the piece to look brand new if you can. I started with a 60 grit, and then I went to a 120, and then I went to a 220, and each time it gets a little finer and it helps the wood to get smoother and smoother. So it should take stain pretty easily. Now this is probably the toughest part of this job, is hand sanding these areas that are hard to get into. It's hard to get off the finish, but it's really the only way I can do it. I don't have a sander that's able to get into those small areas, which is just fine. It just takes a little bit longer. I'm using a little piece of steel wool to clean off these appliques, hoping that it'll get off that dirt that's been probably sticking to it for quite a while. There are cracks in this seat that are pretty big, and I'm thinking that I can probably get the dry glue out of there and make it fit a little bit tighter. So I'm trying to break it apart naturally, sort of, but it's not coming off because it's really glued on there good. So I'm using my chisel and my little mallet to get that glue off and then kind of pry those 2 pieces apart, because I'm hoping that I can clean out enough of the glue to get it nice and snug again so you won't even see the seam. Now that I've gotten the glue out of there, I put some new glue on and tried to get it back together. And it just wasn't going to be as tight as I had hoped. But I am not giving up. I'm going to put on my clamp, make it as tight as I can, get that glue oozing through there, and see what I can do. There's still a gap here, but I think once I stain it, because I'm going to stain it dark, I may do a couple of different tones, different colors of stain. I think that that will help kind of mask this gap. But overall, I think that's pretty good. I have to sand it a little bit more. Then I still have these two pieces. It's kind of like flooring. It goes this way. You've got the male and the female end. They sort of snap together, kind of like flooring. And what I'll do is I'll put glue in here and a little glue there, but not too much. But I think what happens is the glue, they put too much glue in there, and then over time it causes it to separate. That's a guess. So I have this piece to put back on and this piece on the other end. Oops. Yeah, gross. So I'm going to finish the seat. I'm going to sand it down a little bit more. Then I'm going to stain it. I'm going to do everything while it's separated because it's just easier. And then I'm going to go to the frame, which is over there. Looking pretty good, actually. I sanded it quite a bit. With it separated from the seat, I'm able to get into a lot of spots that would be a little bit more difficult to get into had it all been together. So I'm kind of glad I took it apart because it makes the sanding process a little bit faster. I want to get finished with this chair. I need to, now you can see there's appliques on the top that the customer wants to keep. And they're very sweet, so I understand why they want to keep them. I'm gently sanding around these appliques because I don't want to sand off the applique. Teddy's watching the rain. It's raining. We need the rain, so it's okay. Makes the colors on the trees very pretty. I'm adding a little bit more glue on the outside, kind of pushing it in there, hoping that that will help fill the gap as well. I tried to be as careful as possible when I was staining these areas and using mineral spirits with a Q-tip to clean off the stain as I went. Now, I didn't necessarily have to do that. As long as I'm cleaning off the stain with mineral spirits the same day or maybe a half day and a day. You just don't want to wait too long because the stain will dry and it'll be really hard to get off. But there were spots that I had trouble with. Once I put the stain on, I could see that there were some scratches that I had missed when I sanded. So I had to go back and I wiped it off with mineral spirits, and then I went back and sanded it again with a 120 and a 220 so that I could get rid of those scratches. I chose General Finishes gel stain in the color Java for the majority of the chair, and then for the front of the back of the chair I chose Antique Walnut. And After I was finished with the antique walnut, it is a lighter stain, and I wanted it to be lighter, but it felt like it was too light. So I did go back with a dark walnut around the flowers. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to use multi-tones of stain on the seat. And I started with the darkest one, which is the Java color. And I put that on the seams to kind of camouflage the fact that there were seams there at all, especially because the seat had a gap on it that was going to show up. And the dark stain helped to mask that. I used a natural color to begin with, and then I thought that was a little bit too bright, kind of yellowish, so I toned that down with the antique walnut. But I think the Java, the antique walnut, and the dark walnut looked really nice together, and it kind of made the seat look a little rustic, and I really liked how it came out. I wasn't sure how it was going to come out, so I was really thrilled with the results. Now, once I got the seat off, I could finally work on the frame of the chair that was a little wonky, and I needed to get everything back in place. So I kind of chipped away at the glue a little bit, and then I went back and put glue back in where it needed to be, wiped it down, put a clamp on it, and everything stuck really nicely and everything was back and square. So I was starting to put the seat back on, and yes, I forgot to film it. There's holes right here, and this one is a little higher than the other. The screws weren't going in far enough to hug the seat tight to the back of the chair. I decided to use my drill and make the holes go in a little further. And I got the first one done. And I did this one. That happened. Well, that's not great. I think I can fix it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sawdust that's here. I'm going to take some wood glue and stuff the sawdust back in there, and then probably add wood filler on top. I'm going to see how that goes. See what happens. Chair 2 had a crack all the way across the backrest, and I did exactly the same thing I did with all of the seats of the chairs. I used 3 clamps to get pressure all the way across, equal pressure, so that it would stay together better. It was time to put the seat back on. I grabbed the old screws. I was going to try and use new screws, but that didn't work out very well because the screw was too long, and that's why the drill went through the seat. So I went back to the original screws, and as you can see, the repair turned out perfectly. I mean, you can hardly see that at all now. I'm actually just thrilled because I was very freaked out when it happened. Right in the beginning of the video, the chair 1 had a gap between the bar below the seat part and the seat. So I needed to figure out another way to make sure that the seat stuck to the legs, and that's what I did. I just glued it to the legs. That worked perfectly, and I used the clamps to stick everything together until it dried. I had some of the same issues with chair 2. This is chair 2 right here. I stained it all, and then you can see I'm sanding it again using the mineral spirits to take off some blotchy areas. And I think it was the wood more than it was me. I just had to do a little extra work here. Most of the pegs were missing on these chairs, so I bought some new ones, and they were almost identical. They were a little wider on the top, but as long as the bottom fit, it was perfect. Well, friends, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. A couple of things that you should take away when you are staining a piece of furniture, especially if it's an antique or it's just kind of old. If it's a piece of furniture that's been around a while, maybe even been refinished before, there may be some things that are hidden that you're not going to discover until you put on a coat of paint or a coat of stain. My suggestion to you is to have the mindset that you're going to test out this stain on this wood and see how it looks, because there's a chance that there's going to be scratches, especially if you're in an area like on the legs. When you saw me sanding and I had to redo it, it's because there's so many little small areas that I needed to get into, and it was hard to get my sanding sponge to go this way, and that's the way the wood was going, but I needed to do it this way because it was way easier to do. Well, I scratched the wood, and not really quite sure how to avoid that without getting a different sander. And right now, that's not an option. So anyway, my suggestion to you is just go in, put the stain on, have the mindset that you might have to take it off and redo it, and you just have that mineral spirits nearby, have a rag nearby, and have your sander. So once you take the mineral spirits, once you take the stain off with the mineral spirits, let it dry, and it will dry pretty quickly, and then you can sand it down and restain it. If you just stay in the moment and work on your piece, enjoy the process. The process is what is fun about refinishing a piece. Yes, the end is fun because you get to see the results, but the process is great too, and the more you do it, the better you will get. So just change your mindset. Think, I'm going to test it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I can take off the stain and do it again. Good news, you can do that. You don't have to do one and done. You don't have to do one, there's no going back. There's always a way to fix it, almost always. You saw me go right through the seat with my drill. Wow, that was dumb. But it happens. It happens, and it even happens to professionals that have been doing it for years and years and years. You can ask my husband, Phil. It happens. And that's why there are tips for you to repair it. I think this was a success, and I think my customer will be happy. Thanks for being here. Good luck on your next project. Change your mindset. See you next time.
You can do it.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. You can find more videos just like this on my YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe.